However, there were some who didn't mind him and wanted to take him in. But in the end, they all went back on their word. It turned out that all of this was manipulated by Tian Lucan behind the scenes. At first, he just wanted to become a member of Tian Rumming's group. But Tian Ru, and when Kuei chose to join Tian Rumen is unavoidable. After he refused Tian Lucan's invitation several times, his hands and legs were broken. Then he went to join other people's groups. They all refused because their arms and legs were broken. He slowly peeled off the human skin mask from his face. His true face was revealed. He joined the Tianru Ming group earlier. Zhao Min nearby strongly suggested that they must accept him, because he is the grandson of the 9th elder among the 12 elders of the demon sect. A voice came, "Young Master Tianru Ming, can we chat for a while?" As soon as he saw who it was, the person beside him hurriedly said, "My lord, you must accept him." This person turned out to be the #1 beauty of the heavenly demon sect. However, when Tian Rumming announced that he wanted to establish a new Tianhua sect, some people chose to leave. Most of those who left were affiliated sects of the 6 major factions. However, there were also some people from smaller sects who stayed behind. Just then, but it was too late. He Yiming, to keep the secret from being discovered, actually chose to commit suicide by swallowing it. At this moment, on the other side, Tian Rumming was receiving a steady stream of people. After defeating Tian Lucan, Li Yanming grabbed his neck. The sword sect of Ji was actually one of the hidden dark sects of the sword demon sect. Hearing this, He Yiming was shocked inside. Then he clenched his teeth tightly. Blood began to flow from his mouth. Li Yanming hurriedly pried open his mouth. "That means your sect is also under suspicion. Is it really not important that the sword sect was annihilated?" Then there was a crack. He Yiming's legs twisted into a spiral shape, yet he still said nothing, enveloping He Yiming in internal energy, suspending him in midair. With just a slight movement of his fingers, He Yiming's arm twisted like a braid. Li Yanming slowly said, "You're so young yet you've already mastered the reversed spiral demonic art." Suddenly, He Yiming jolts awake and sits up. Li Yanming asks sternly, "Where did you learn your mechanics magic?" He Yiming pretends to be confused and says he doesn't understand the meaning. Seeing him so ungrateful, Li Yanming raised his hand slightly. "We want to swear our loyalty to young Master Tianru, even at the cost of our lives." On the other side, in the office of the demon sect, He Yiming is still unconscious from using the mechanics magic. Li Yanming is suppressing the mechanics magic with his inner strength. He was quite surprised. He hadn't expected Tian Rumming to give them 2 nameplates. In this ruthless cult, such generosity was unexpected. After weighing the pros and cons, Go Ran's entire group knelt down with a thud, break their arms and legs. Hearing this, those people showed terror. All that could be heard was a series of agonized wails. Tian Rumming handed Go Ran 2 nameplates. After receiving the nameplates, "You're truly a cruel guy. The opponent has already lost. You still want to go this far?" Tian Rumen then gave him a hard slap. She ordered everyone to capture all the others. Handing over the yellow badge would be the end of it. "I just learned a trick from Tian Lucan. Leave no loose ends." Yu Jingbi heard this. He said viciously. Yu Jingbi clutched his stomach, collapsed to the ground, and vomited blood. "We've already kept our promise. What more do you want?" Tian Rumming just chuckled. "I never said." Yu Jingbi angrily handed the name tag to Tian Rumming, while muttering, "Just wait and see. One day, I will get my revenge for today." Tian Rumming took the name tag, and landed a heavy punch on Yu Jingbi's abdomen. He had said something similar to Tian Rumming. This time, Tian Lucan was utterly defeated. He ordered his men to give the yellow nameplate to Tian Rumming. After saying this, he fainted from excessive blood loss. If you're still thinking that's the 7 demon swords, it shows you're far from being able to properly discuss sword techniques. After hearing that, Tian Lucan trembled all over. Once upon a time, he was still engrossed in the swordsmanship Tian Rumming just used. How could the insignificant 7 demon swords possess such power? Even now, he still thought it was the 7 demon swords. But Tian Rumming told him. The subordinates around the acupoint wanted to rush forward to help. Tian Rumming directly pressed the sword against Tian Liuzan's other arm. "Move one more step, and I'll cut off his other arm." After Tian Lucan had his arm cut off by Tian Rumming, Tian Rumming seized the opportunity. A sword pierced into his shoulder, then it was thrust upward. An arm flew off. Tian Lucan swiftly hit the acupoint on the shoulder. Tian Ruming had already appeared in front of him. Before he could react, the sword energy instantly enveloped him. All that could be heard was a scream. The sword energy left deep scratches on him. It was becoming harder to defend against. This won't do. He quickly created some distance. He unleashed the 5th form of the phantom sword technique. But before he could execute it, blade against blade, as the fight continued, Tian Lucan felt increasingly uneasy. How did the 7 demon sword become so powerful? Many of the moves were quite strange and tricky. She nodded slightly. This time, Tian Lucan let Tian Ruming strike first. Tian Ruming unleashed the breaking regret sword technique and charged towards Tian Lucan. But Tian Lucan still thought that it was the 7-demon sword. He unleashed the 4th form of the Phantom Demon Blade technique. I feel like I'm at a loss no matter what. As long as I win. I want your subordinate, Bai Ji, too. Tian Ruming looked at Bai Ji in the distance. Bai Ji chose to trust Tian Ruming. Tian Ruming hears this and smiles. Then let's make a bet. I'll wager the yellow name tag in my hand. Tian Lucan covers his face and laughs. But I have 4 name tags. You've learned to switch up the 7 demon swords like the instructors taught. But that won't work on me. Tian Lucan raises 5 fingers. With just 5 moves, I'll cut off your arm. Don't use that clumsy sword technique. Do you think I don't know that sword technique? Hearing this, Tian Ruming was startled. Could it be that he also knows the destruction sword technique on the jade stone? But the next words made Tian Ruming breathe a sigh of relief. At the moment he felt confident. The sword of Tian Ruming suddenly appeared, blocking this attack. This truly took him by surprise. Tian Lu said nonchalantly, "You'd better stick to your butterfly dance technique." He didn't expect him to use sword techniques. Seeing him using his sword technique to defend, Tian Lucan wasn't worried at all. His knife techniques are varied and intricate, not something ordinary sword techniques can block. He unleashed the 2nd form of the Phantom Blade technique, Blade Exchange Slash. Tian Liucan's strength surpassed his. He could only give his all to block it. In the end, he chose to use sword techniques. Tian Lucan initially thought he would use blade techniques. Tian Lucan moved. He suddenly disappeared from the spot. The speed was astonishing. Everyone only saw an afterimage at the original spot. In the next second, he appeared above Tian Ruming. When I first saw him outside the training room, he was just a snot-nosed kid. Tian Lucan felt a bit regretful for not having cut off his arm back then. At this moment, he looked completely serious. This time, he must disable one of his arms. Just then, the sword energy and blade energy clashed, creating a loud bang. When the smoke cleared, Tian Lucan slowly walked over. At this moment, seeing Tian Ruming was like seeing a different person. A powerful energy was detected 60 meters behind. Tian Ruming quickly turned around and shouted to everyone, "Get down." Just as everyone lay down, a blade of light flashed overhead. Tian Ruming directly used the Heavenly Demon Sword technique to block the blade. Tian Ruming dodged to the side and ripped off the yellow nameplate from his chest. Then, with one more punch, sent him flying. He was so angry, he spat out blood on the spot. At that moment, a nanomachine alert came through. When Lien Bo took off the cloth from his face, they finally saw it was Tian Ruming. Lien Bo's voice had been altered by that machine. At this moment, Chen Wei on the side realized Tian Ruming had tricked them. He swung his fist directly at Tian Ruming. Gao Wanyi and Bai Qi, who were originally lying on the ground, they all stood up instantly. As soon as Gao Wang stood up, he punched Yu Jingbi. Even now, they still haven't reacted. They still think Lien Bo betrayed them. The powerful blow sent Tian Lu flying 66 meters away. The onlookers saw this, and loudly questioned Lien Bo. "What are you doing?" At that moment. But when he saw the face clearly, his expression instantly froze. It turned out to be Lien Bo. Before he could think about who Lien Bo really was, the man directly punched him in the face. Lien Bo replied, "It's Tian Ruming." Tian Lu can the knife's energy in his hand. Then he slowly approached Tian Ruming. With a swift motion, he severed Tian Ruming's tendons. He smugly tore away the person on Tian Ruming's face. Everyone stops in their tracks. They throw the person they were carrying onto the ground. It's actually Bai Ji and Gao Wangyitan. One of them is also masked. Tian Lucan points at the masked enemy and asks who this guy is. Suddenly, a group of people approach from a distance, each of them carrying someone on their shoulders. The person walking in front has their face covered. It's hard to see who it is. From the voice, it sounds like Lien Bo, as if something occurred to him. "Get ready. We're going to settle the score with Tian Lucan right now." At this moment, Tian Lucan is practicing the 7-demon sword formation with his team. He is discussing sword techniques with Jing Bai. Suddenly, Go Ran beside them said that the manpower is insufficient. "And we will help too. But even so, the top combat power is still not enough." Tian Ruming paused for a moment in thought. At this moment, everyone else had also lost a leg and a finger. Now that we know the mastermind is Tian Lucan, they plan to seek revenge. However, they currently lack manpower. The only top expert is Bai Ji. He was seen carving an arc in the air, before being heavily slammed onto the ground. Then, Tian Ruming executed the Moon Uprising Fist. With this blow to his head sank deeply into the ground. Yet, He Yiming's form only swayed slightly. Instead, Bai Ji's leg trembled continuously, from the powerful recoil. What shocked everyone even more was that the suddenly powerful He Yiming was casually grabbed by Tian Ruming by the wrist. The eyes were blood red. Then, with a leap, it lunged towards the sky as if by fate. In this critical moment, Bai Ji delivered a spinning kick directly to He Yiming's face. Then he ordered everyone to break one leg and one finger of all He Yiming's team members. Just as Tian Rumming turned to leave, He Yiming used his mechanical magic. You could see the veins on his body bulging. His aura surged dramatically. With a snap, another finger was broken. At this moment, He Yiming's eyes were filled with malice and murderous intent. Tian Rumming saw how ungrateful he was. He directly slapped him hard across the face. His finger was brutally broken. Unable to cry out due to the pressure on his pressure point, his face turned red. Seeing He Yiming's painful expression, Tian Rumming decided to break another one. And just like that, Lian Bo fainted. By now, the others had also been subdued. He Yiming, for disobedience, had his pressure point sealed. Tian Rumming walked over and grabbed his hand. With a snap. At this moment, he said fiercely, "This is how you treat me. Young Master Tian Lucan won't let you go." He hoped to use Tian Liuzan's power to intimidate Tian Rumming. But once again, he was wrong. Tian Rumming forcefully pressed his head against the ground again. "Can you still make a move?" What he didn't expect was that Tian Rumming suddenly grabbed his hair. Then he yanked hard, and he had a close encounter with the ground. Lian Bo immediately put down the wooden sword in his hand. With a thud, he knelt before Tian Rumming. He begged Tian Rumming to spare him. At this moment, he thought, no matter how angry you are, the opponent has already bowed and surrendered. It turned out Bai Ji saw him making a move. She kicked him over. At this point, everyone gathered together. He Yiming was no match for Bai Ji. In the end, Bai Ji knocked him down with a kick. Then with a forceful grip, the wooden sword breaks inch by inch. Just as he is shocked that the wooden sword, infused with 70% of his internal energy, is shattered by Tian Rumming, he is kicked in the back by someone. Lian Bo hurriedly dodged. And just at that moment, He Yiming also thrusts his sword towards Tian Rumming. But before the sword reaches, it is tightly grasped by Tian Rumming with his hand. Young Master Tian Lu can refuse. This way, he wouldn't be lying. Just when he was feeling pleased with himself, Tian Rumming appeared behind him. With a swift hand chop, at least 2 tokens are needed. When Lian Bo heard this, he understood the reason for their betrayal. "I can suggest to young Master Tian Lucan to give you 2 tokens. After saying that, he secretly thought to himself that he was just making a suggestion. He tries to convince Go Ran to keep working with him. Young Master Tian Lucan has already agreed to take you under his command. Why don't you believe it? And then Go Ran directly asked, will he give us 2 yellow tokens? He wants to take 19 of us under his command. Gao Wanyi continued, saying that Tian Luchan is playing games with them like this. Don't you want revenge? Because of Go Ran's betrayal, their advantage of having more people is gone. Lian Bo knows that continuing like this is a dead end. There were 19 of them. 1 badge is simply not enough. If only 1 badge is given, they're definitely going to fight. These days, Tian Luchan surely knows. Do you really think he will give you the yellow badge? At this moment, Go Ran began to doubt himself. He never really believed in Tian Lu Kai. It was just that Yu Ping Shui kept insisting. At this time, his companions also began to discuss. She immediately tackled Go Ran to the ground. Her fists rained down like a storm. At that moment, Gao Wang's voice stopped Su Feng. He asked Go Ran, do you trust the agreement with Tian Lucan? The name tags, it was all under Tian Liuzan's orders. And Tian Liuzan's goal was to get Bai Ji. Bai Ji originally felt a bit of gratitude towards Tian Lucan, but didn't expect all of this to be a trap. After hearing everything, Su Feng became even angrier. Su Feng, furious and embarrassed, kept punching the man in the face. In the end, Bai Ji stopped her. They learned from Go Ran that previously, when they and He Yiming were fighting over, Yu Ping Shui passed out. Su Feng tightly grabbed Go Ran's collar. You broke Wu Zhong's finger. Where's the stolen name tag? Go Ran replied that it was in He Yiming's hands. He could only lightly punch Yu Ping Shui. Before making a move, Tian Rumming kept silently reminding himself to control his strength. But it seems he didn't control it well enough. Just 1 punch. They all showed a panicked expression. It turns out that 2 hours ago, Tian Rumming had found the ones who had robbed their name tags yesterday. Yu Ping Shui arrogantly said, we have more people. Tian Rumming just smiled upon hearing this. What a foolish guy. Tian Rumming calmly replied, this is something I should be saying, right? Just then, Go Ran, who was standing in the back, suddenly shouted loudly at He Yiming and the others, put down your swords. He Yiming and the others saw Go Ran pointing their swords at them. At this moment, Tian Rumming was thinking about how to find He Yiming for revenge. Unexpectedly, he came to me voluntarily. Tian Rumming looked at He Yiming with a smile. This feeling made He Yiming quite unhappy. You're still smiling. Don't you realize the situation? And his body slightly trembled. They found He Yiming again, because he has a grudge against Tian Rumming. Soon, they reached a cooperation. In the small grove, they found Tian Rumming, and has asked Lian Bo to go with them, and even promised them, as long as they snatch the nameplate, they will recruit them as guns. Go Ran heard this. So Go Ran came in his place to ask Tian Lucan to fulfill the promise. Unexpectedly, he used the excuse that they hadn't recovered Bai Ji, claiming they hadn't completed the mission. and couldn't give them the badge. Now he's making them go after Tian Rumming's badge. Previously, Bai Ji's token was stolen, and the mastermind was Tian Lucan. He had Yu Pingxue inside He Yiming to steal Bai Ji's token, so he could take the opportunity to subdue Bai Ji. Yu Pingxue suffered internal injuries and was sent to the infirmary. He looked at everyone's serious expressions. He said since he owed that kid a huge debt, he'd return it to him exactly as it was. The three agreed to go steal Tian Rumming's token. Unexpectedly, one of them betrayed the group right from the start. Wu Zhong was seriously injured by He Yiming, while protecting the name tag. This time, after listening, Tian Rumming didn't impulsively seek revenge. Instead, he remained calm. So, he asked where the others were. There are too many eyes and ears here. Gao Wang led them to a nearby grove. He then told Tian Rumming everything that had happened over the past few days. 2 people left. I am deeply moved. If you accept me, I, Bu Shuanghua of the Po Fu sect, swear to serve young master Tian Ruming with my life. Then, he also accepted Chen Guo, the eldest son of the Chen family. He noticed several members were missing. After Tian Rumming accepted by Ji, everyone was preparing to leave. But at that moment, a beautiful girl suddenly called out to Tian Rumming. She approached Tian Rumming. Kneeling on one knee, she said she had heard the story of his sacrifice for his subordinates. And the sword technique Tian Rumming uses is very similar, but it feels even more powerful. They couldn't help but think of the jade record left by the demon master. In the end, the two still couldn't figure it out. They could only keep this matter a secret for now. They all recognized that the sword technique Tian Rumming used resembled the heavenly demon sword technique used by the leader. The heavenly demon sword technique was created by the heavenly demon ancestor, a peerless sword technique. It's said to be the #1 demonic sword technique passed on to the leader. Li Yanming has accompanied the leader for many years. He has seen the heavenly demon sword technique. This made Tian feel awkward, and cold sweat dripped down. Meanwhile, on the roof, Li Yanming and Hu Jinchang were talking. He had just sent a message to Hu Jinchang. Tell him to stop. How could I not be moved? Just then, Bai Ji's face suddenly turned red. As Bai Ji, I will work even harder to assist young Master Tian. Bai Ji suddenly knelt down, on one knee, and said, I am deeply grateful to you, young Master Tian Rumming. It was because of you that I was able to survive the poison demon sex grasp. You suffered at the hands of Guan Ju because of this. At that moment, Bai Ji suddenly called out to Tian Rumming. Tian Rumming looked at Bai Ji with a puzzled expression. Why call him? But what happened next shocked Tian Rumming even more. But at this moment, his expression shifted, then quickly withdrew his imposing aura, and cheerfully handed the yellow plaque to Tian Rumming. Wu Jinchang admitted defeat. Hu Jinchang used 10 layers of his power to overcome the sword aura that had entered his body. Then, with a dull thud, he forced the sword aura out of his body. His entire aura rapidly intensified. He was ready to go all out and face Tian Rumming head-on. He was unwilling to use his protective true energy, fearing he would be unable to withstand it. At that very moment, Hu Jinchang was struck by a sword aura from Tian Rumming. Everyone was left dumbfounded. His movements were as swift as lightning. Both sides exchanged blows. They fought to a standstill. During the confrontation, Hu Jinchang realized that the sword techniques he used were too powerful. He used 4 moves of the 7 demon swords simultaneously. The crowd only saw his shadow flicker, with the moves in his hand constantly changing. Meanwhile, Tian Rumming's expression was grim. He used the heavenly demon sword supply team. He exuded an overwhelming aura. Once he saw the moves clearly, a smile appeared on his face. These are several moves from the sword dance of the 7 demon swords. Seeing how skilled Tian Rumming was with the 7 demon swords, Wu Jinchang decided to take this battle seriously. However, he was still full of confidence, because he was very familiar with the knife techniques used by Tian Rumming. But when the two collided, he realized that Tian Rumming was using sword techniques, not knife techniques. Tian Rumming and Hu Jinchang stood facing each other. Both of their eyes were filled with determination. A fierce battle was about to begin. Tian Rumming suddenly appeared in front of Hu Jinchang. The speed startled Hu Jinchang. He doesn't look like someone who has been in the dark for 5 days at all. Tian Rumming's first action upon coming out was to ask how many yellow badges were left. After learning that only the one in the head coach's hands remained, he chose to go directly to head coach Hu Jinchang for a match. Magic Hall Square. Early the next morning, 2 instructors came to the gold gathering room and released Tian Rumming. As soon as they opened the stone door, they were stunned. Those sharp eyes. That strong physique. His leg was also broken. Bai Ji was also ambushed during the fight and had his thigh slashed. Su Feng helps Wu Zhong up and takes him to the medical room. The nameplate was snatched away. Now they can only wait until Tian Rumming comes out tomorrow to make plans. Everyone rushed to check on Wu Zhong, who was gravely injured and had collapsed. Earlier, he had fled with the yellow name tag, but in the end, he was still caught by those people. Wu Zhong held on until the last moment to protect the name tag. In their attempt to take the tag, those people broke all of Wu Zhong's fingers. since he had already obtained the yellow badge. He took his men and left. Before leaving, Tian Lucan told Bai Ji to think it over. He's not in a hurry. After they all left, so he wanted to take action. But Bai Ji blocked it. It turned out Tian Lucan happened to pass by and saw someone attacking Bai Ji. He always wanted to recruit Bai Ji under his command. So he stepped in to help, and the person was no match for Tian Lucan. When they arrived, they saw Bai Ji surrounded by a group of people from a distance. Gao Wang also reached Bai Ji's side. The person in front was Tian Lucan from the Gao Mo sect. He thought that Tian Lucan was trying to take the name tag. Seeing the pursuers getting closer, Wu Zhong quickly took over. They split up and fled in different directions. Su Feng came to the cafeteria to talk to Gao Wang. Upon hearing about this, Gao Wang rushed over to the training area. They had to give the nameplate to Su Feng first. Let the two of them run with the nameplate. After receiving the nameplate, the two took off running. But Su Feng's lightness skill was too weak. As soon as Bai Ji and the others reached the entrance of the training room, they were blocked by the leader of Group 6 and his men. They wanted to seize the nameplate in Bai Ji's hand. Although Bai Ji's martial arts skills were top-notch, he couldn't fend off the attack of 30 elite fighters. Bai Ji plans to go to the training room to cultivate. He has a yellow tag on him. Everyone was worried about being robbed, so Su Feng and Wu Zhong accompanied Bai Ji to the training room, while Gao Wang and the other two went to eat. Jian Mo Sex Tian Jingyan has 2. Siwu Sex Sima Zhua has 2. Besides that, there are 7 others each holding 1 tag. Lastly, only Chief Instructor Hu Zhenchang's tag hasn't been taken yet. Dinner time. After Tian Rumming lost his nameplate, he was locked in the detention room. 2 members chose to leave the group, but Bai Ji eventually decided to join Tian Rumming's group, and after joining, he received another nameplate from the instructor. Right now, Dao Mo Sex Tian Lucan has 4. Tian Rumming transferred the knowledge of these sword techniques into his mind using nanomachines, then began training like crazy. Today is the 4th day of Tian Rumming's official scholar status. The group members are having a meeting in the forest. At this moment, their group has only 6 members left. He walked up to it and tapped it with his hand. With one strike, he created a hole in the stone wall. In this way, Tian Rumming discovered the hidden chamber. Inside, he found the Tiangmo sword technique. These dazzling night pearls were inscribed with top-tier swordsmanship. Unexpectedly, the poison demon sect wasn't here to harm Tian Rumming, but to deliver a great gift. At that moment, he felt a gentle breeze blowing behind him. He looked at the stone wall that he had previously cracked. Before long, a foul-smelling black, sticky substance began to seep from Tian Rumming's body. Then, he started practicing the Wuqian heart technique, absorbing the medicinal power of the pill. As he finished circulating his energy, he felt his internal strength increase by half a level, and leave the Demon Path Academy. Then he will be left with no way to survive, no way to die either. But he doesn't know that Tian Rumming has nanomachines. He had the nanomachines separate the toxic components. Unexpectedly, this pill had effects similar to those of the Demon Dragon clan. However, taking it would dissipate the inner. That old man Bai Wu is indeed very tough. If Tian Rumming doesn't take this seriously, he will fail the 3rd phase assessment. He'll be eliminated from the Demon Path Academy. Then he pushed him away with one palm. With a bang, Tian Rumming once again crashed into the stone wall behind him. After Bai Wu left, he had the machine analyze the pill Tian Rumming just took. Tian Rumming returned to his hand once more, but he saw the cruelty in Tian Rumming's eyes had not diminished at all. Bai Wu understood that this person would become a great threat in the future. Before leaving, he gave Tian Rumming a black pill, and became furious. With a swift strike, he pushed it away. With a loud bang, Tian Rumming crashed heavily against the stone wall behind. Then, Bai Wu's hand struck again. He raised his hand, and Tian Rumming felt himself lifted by an invisible force. However, there was no trace of fear on Tian Rumming's face. Instead, his eyes were filled with determination. Bai Wu saw his arrogance. Undisturbed by anyone, Tian Rumming could focus on practicing his martial arts. Just as he finished his martial arts training and rested, the stone door of Zhu Jing's cave was opened. A menacing figure appeared at the entrance. Thus, it was decided to revoke Tian Rumming's yellow badge, and have him reflect for 5 days in the confinement cave. This way, he would only have 1 day left to regain the yellow badge. In the confinement cave, the next day, the head of the Demon Arts Hall, Li Yanming, called Tian Rumming to his office. Although there is no rule in the Demon Arts Hall against crippling someone's dantian, the dantian is equivalent to a martial artist's life. If not dealt with, such incidents might happen again. After returning to the dorm, Tian Rumming told everyone what had happened. Everyone was worried that the Demon Arts Hall and Poison Demon sect would cause trouble after hearing about it. Tian Rumming did not regret crippling Tian Songjin's dantian. He just hadn't thought of a foolproof plan before taking action. The little brother Tian Rumming came over. They surrounded him. They asked a lot of questions. Seeing this scene, what he originally wanted to say was swallowed back down. Tian Rumming left the infirmary in deep thought. He hadn't gone far when Bai Ji caught up to him. He called out to Tian Rumming, just about to speak. That incapacitating a martial artist's dantian is a serious matter. Be careful of the poison sex retaliation. Surviving in the demonic cult doesn't mean you're strong, but it definitely means you're smart. After listening to Dr. Bai's words, this time there was no other choice. They could only choose to trust Tian Rumming. After Tian Songjian finished the medicinal soup, his condition improved significantly. In the end, Dr. Bai still reminded Tian Rumming there was no issue at all. He couldn't help but think Tian Rumming had studied pharmacology before. But to create an antidote, one must first know what poison it is. Tian Rumming directly stated the type of poison Tian Songjian was affected by. He requested Dr. Bai to trust him. He used that nanomachine to analyze the toxins in the blood. It identified the type of poison, then prepared an antidote decoction. Dr. Bai saw Tian Rumming brewing the decoction. He came over to taste the formula. He will undoubtedly die. However, there are too many types of toxins in Tian Songjian's body. Dr. Bai took out a detox pill made by his master for Tian Songjian to take. This pill can only delay the onset of toxicity. Tian Rumming does not wish for Tian Songjian to die here, because he was practicing the poison bao. His dantian was filled with toxins. Now the dantian is ruptured. Toxins spread throughout the body. If the toxins are not detoxified in time. But when he asked if he was involved, the analysis indicated he was lying. So Tian Ruming chose to cripple his dantian. Tian Ruming sent the barely alive Tian to the infirmary. At this time, he was seriously poisoned, and had the me machine analyze it. We were not the ones who killed your mother. It was the ladies from the other 5 sects. Tian Rumming concluded this from analyzing his expression. He didn't lie. At that time, he saw his mother give the micro-poison to a masked woman. Less than a year after that, Tian Rumming's mother passed away. At this time, Tian Tong could hardly speak. Tian Rumming saw him muttering something. He stepped on his palm with one foot. In the end, all of Tian Songjian's limbs were twisted into a braid by Tian Rumming. At this moment, Tian Songjian regretted it deeply. He shouldn't have given Bai Ji the micro-poison. He recalled the first time he heard about micro-poison when he was a child. He looked at Tian Rumming's eyes filled with fear. He desperately kowtowed and begged for mercy, hoping Tian Rumming would spare his life. Tian Songjian's mother was the one who died from the micro-poison. How could he possibly let Tian Songjian go so easily? Tian Songjian saw that his poison had taken effect, and revealed a smug smile. But the next second, he looked as if he saw a monster. Tian Rumming's previously decayed skin was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this moment, Tian Songjian was so terrified by the scene that he collapsed. But it was already too late. He inhaled a large amount of poison, and both his face and hands had come into contact with it. Soon, the part of his face that touched the poison began to rot, revealing his exposed white bones. Just like Tian Rumming, all that could be heard was the sound of cracking bones. But at that moment, a lot of green appeared from another hand in the treetops. He quickly stepped back in alarm. Tian Rumming, the one thing you shouldn't do when you're near him is insult my mother with your filthy mouth. After saying that, he threw another punch at Tian Songjian. At that moment, Tian Songjian moved his hand. He punched towards Tian Rumming. Unexpectedly, he was firmly grasped. At this point, he looked at the approaching Tian Songjian. He felt a sharp killing intent coming from him. Even in this situation, Tian Songjian was still comforting himself that there are rules in the Demon Dao Hall. He doesn't dare to kill me. With a loud bang, the giant rock was struck by Tian Songjian, creating a large pit. At that moment, he still hadn't reacted. His face showed misfortune. He was actually severely injured by a single punch. That's right, how could you possibly not know about slight poison? Your filthy mother too. It's still because of the threat. Before he finished speaking, Tian struck him in the face with a punch. Sure enough, he found Tian Kongjian picking poisonous herbs. Tian Rumming didn't waste any words. He directly said, "You're the one who added the mild poison to the Bai Ji, aren't you?" Tian heard him say, "Slight poison." He burst into laughter instantly. He told Tian Rumming the location of Tian Kongjian. Before leaving, Tian Rumming said, "If this is true, I'll send that kid to the bed next to yours as thanks." Dr. Bai and Bai Ji were both dumbfounded. Tian Rumming went to the woods across from the martial arts school. Now he finally found the source of the poison. So, Tian Rumming decided to find the young master of the poison demon sect, Tian Songjian. But just then, a voice entered his mind. It turned out to be Tian Rujing, who was recovering in the infirmary. Fortunately, it was discovered early. He only needs to take the antidote for 7 consecutive days to be fully cured. The reason Tian Rumming was able to discover it was because his mother was the one poisoned by the Xiaoming poison. At that time, he was also slightly poisoned. Is because he was exposed to a mild poison. Inhaling a small amount each time isn't very noticeable. At this moment, Bai Ji was even more certain it was Tian Tongjian's doing. Earlier, while competing for the group leader of the second phase assessment, he gave Tian Tongjian a thorough beating. To smell a special kind of smoke, After he inhaled it, he started coughing violently. His chest also ached faintly. It can be confirmed that he was indeed poisoned. The reason it hasn't been discovered all this time. How could he still be poisoned? Seeing Bai Ji's look of disbelief, Tian Ruming called Dr. Bai, who was eating, to come and examine him. They arrived at the medical room. Dr. Bai asked Bai Ji. He directly said, I feel like you've been poisoned. Earlier, when I saw you in the duel, your complexion was pale, and there were red spots on your neck. At that moment, Bai Ji thought of the poison demon sect's young master, Tian Songjian, but he had always been on guard against him. You're not even a candidate for the 6 major sect's young leaders, yet you're more arrogant than the first 2. Do you think that way will make me join you? Seeing that Tian Ruming knew he misunderstood, he got straight to the point, speaking in a calm tone, if you don't talk to me now, you might die later. Hearing this, Bai Ji's eating motion froze instantly. Then with a bang, he put down his bowl and chopsticks. His only goal is to become stronger. Just as he was focusing on his meal, someone else sat across from him. He impatiently said, I have no interest. But Tian Ruming wasn't angry. Bai Ji is eating. Sees that Tian Jingyun from the demon sect wants to invite him to join. He was ruthlessly rejected. Previously, Tian Lucan from the Blade Demon sect had also invited him. But he dislikes these arrogant people. At this moment, he clenches his fists, becoming more certain of one thing. Meanwhile, the Blade Demon sect's Tian Lucan also defeated the martial arts instructor, and obtained the yellow nameplate. Demon Path Pavilion Cafeteria. Tian Ruming took the Demon Dragon Pill. With the help of nanomachines regulating his body's drug tolerance, his internal power cultivation has surpassed 60 years. He projected an image of Bai Ji during battle. Zoom in on his face and neck. They resolutely choose to pledge loyalty to the heavenly mandate, including these 3. Tian Ruming's group now has 7 people. He plans to personally teach them the 7 demon swords. In the private training room, this is no different from declaring war on other little leaders. I can hear someone starting to back out, because they do not want to get involved in the struggle for the little leaders. At this moment, only 3 people remain. The 3 of them kneel on one knee. After witnessing Tian Ruming's bravery, they chose to join his team. Tian Ruming told them, he is not just looking for team members to pass the 3rd phase assessment. He is looking for partners to face difficulties together and fight through everything with passion. A group of people suddenly surrounded Tian Ruming. The leader was Prince Gao from the top-tier sect, Majian sect. He was also a first-class expert. The others were at least quasi-first-class experts. Those who consumed the demon dragon pill they obtained could also reach first-class expert status. Although he was defeated, he earned the chief instructor's approval. At this moment, Tian Ruming noticed Bai Ji's neck turning red, and his face was unusually pale. Just then, he left behind a trail of afterimages, and then appeared beneath Bai Ji. A heavy punch landed on his chest. Bai Ji was knocked to the ground, spitting blood. He adjusted his stance. Once again, he charged towards Hu Jinchang. As he got close, he feigned an attack. With a quick move, he kicked back. Hu Jinchang was too fast. Bai Ji used her strength to step on his defense. Then she rolled over. She kicked again, but it was pierced through the sole of her foot by Hu Jinchang's sword. But Bai Ji did not intend to concede. She leapt into the air. A kick aimed at Hu Jinchang. Hu Jinchang's figure flashed. At this moment, he noticed Bai Ji's back foot showing a flaw. In this critical moment, the people nearby watched in shock, mouths agape. Just like that, Tian Ruming won the match. He received the yellow medal. The final match was between Bai Ji and head coach Hu Jinchang. Bai Ji excels in kicking techniques. Clearly, Tian Ruming was injured internally but still hadn't fallen. In the moment when the instructor got distracted, Tian Ruming hit him with a knife hand strike. A mouthful of blood spurted out. 3 ribs were broken in an instant. He commanded that Nami machine to start self-repair. Just like that, Tian Ruming kept suffering internal injuries, and was constantly being repaired by the Nami machine. At the same time, the instructor was getting more and more anxious. Then he swung a knife up close. The instructor was furious to see how easily Tian Ruming had countered his attack. In an instant, he was filled with rage and shame. He unleashed all his power to the 10th level. His overwhelming internal force instantly shattered Tian Ruming's internal organs. The coach uses 70% of his strength to block this strike, but both sides stabilized their stance. The instructor used the 7 demon swords, Sword 4 and Sword 6. Little did he know that Tian Ruming saw through the flaws of the 7 demon swords at a glance. He lowered his body to dodge the attack. At this moment, the coach is full of confidence. Tian Ruming decides to first use the butterfly dance blade technique for comparison. The speed is so fast that the coach almost can't dodge in time. Tian Ruming continues to press the attack. One strike hits directly at the opponent's chest, and is pierced in the shoulder by a sword. Tian Wuyen achieves victory, and receives a yellow badge. The second battle is between Tian Ruming and a group of instructors. Both sides, after exchanging courtesies, officially begin. He pushed forward with a palm strike. The palm wind is fierce. but when the palm comes before the eyes, it suddenly transforms into a sword. The instructor is caught off guard. Perhaps the sword marks on the jade stone were left by the true sword demon. At this moment, the two fighters' elbows clashed again. The two were evenly matched, neither gaining the upper hand. In the end, Tian Wuyen decided to use his ultimate move to determine the outcome. It felt very familiar. Upon closer thought, isn't this the move engraved on the jade stone that counters the Peerless Sword technique? But the 7 devil swords have 12 forms, and the destruction sword techniques have 24 forms. Tian Wu has mastered one of the top 3 palm techniques of the heavenly demon sect. It's the Xianyun palm. The energies of both sides surged together. The terrifying power caused waves of energy to ripple out. Tian Rumming saw the 7 demon sword technique performed by the instructor. Group 1, Tian Wuyen, Group 8, Tian Rumming, and Group 12, by Ji, stepped up to challenge the martial arts instructors. The first match started with Group 1, Tian Wuyen. The competition began. Both sides clasped their fists in respect. Tian Rumming allowed the nanomachines to scan and record the match. The clan leader must defeat the instructor within 7 days, and obtain the title from his hands to take the position. However, the instructors can only use the 7 demon swords to fight against them. On the first day, 3 people stepped forward. They challenged the martial arts instructors. They can freely form teams. They need to learn the top martial art, the 7 demon sword, and then form the demon sword formation. Finally, they must defeat the martial arts instructor. Only then can they pass the 3-stage assessment. But he will start with the virtual shadow. 3 days later, the 3rd stage of the demon crown path assessment begins. At this point, Tian Rumming can already hold his own against 10 Tian Wujing. The left protector, Li Yanming, announced the assessment rules, just as the man said. Noticing that parts of Ye's virtual form were also injured by the sword, he indeed caused the master harm with his unparalleled sword skills. However, the level of martial arts is still worlds apart. There are still 4 years until the end of the Demon Crown Path assessment. Tian Rumming plans to surpass his master within these 4 years. His 2 fingers stopped at the center of Ye's forehead. At the same moment, he was struck by Ye's sweeping blow. If this were reality, his body would have been split in 2 by now. He got up and looked at Ye's image. But he did not give up. He wanted to try using his peerless sword technique against the master again. Tian Rumming, using his fingers as a sword, charged at him once more. After using the ultimate sword technique, he could exchange a few moves with the master. He unleashed the final move of the ultimate sword style. He struck his chin with an upward palm strike, then executed the 3rd form of the butterfly dance sword technique. Tian Rumming was slashed several times in midair, then fell heavily to the ground. Tian Rumming was no match for the master, just a virtual shadow, but it brought a different sense of oppression to Tian Rumming. So, Tian Rumming decided to take the initiative, while he stood still, blocking this attack. He didn't wait for Tian Rumming to recover from his shock. The walls here are very hard. To break the stones here, one would need at least a top-level expert. He chose not to continue here, and confront the 10 heavenly armed police. He had the nanomachines generate a virtual shadow of his master, Yema. With a loud bang, he jumped so high that he cracked the roof. Helpless, he had to end the battle. At this moment, the coach who heard the noise also felt quite speechless. In the end, he could only arrange for Tian Rumming to train in a more advanced practice room. The 10 Tian Wujings charged at Tian Rumming like a gust of wind. Faced with so many attacks, Tian Rumming struggled to cope. To dodge one of the attacks, he jumped up in one leap. This time, it wasn't as exhausting as before. He took down Tian Wujing in just a few moves. He felt that dealing with one Tian Wujing was too easy, so he had the nanomachines generate 10 Tian Wujings, and each one was programmed with different martial arts. This way, they would lose their qualification for the assessment due to insufficient personnel. What they did not expect was that Tian Ruming was so cautious. At this moment, Tian Ruming returned to the training room again. He simulated the Tianwu police training using nanomachines. It was obvious he was deliberately avoiding something. Meanwhile, after failing, the man returned to find Tian Lucan of the Damhua sect. Originally, they planned to arrange for someone to join the Tian Ruming team. On the day of the competition, that person would not show up. He had the nanomachines analyze the man's previous facial expressions. They concluded that there was a high probability he was lying. The biggest suspicion was his claim that he only used knives. Yet he didn't go to find the young leader of the demon sect. Instead, he sought refuge with the Xuanhua sect and Jianhua sect. That he had made the same proposal to the young masters of Xuanhua sect and Jianhua sect before, but was rejected. So in the end, he chose Tian Rumming. Since they both use swords, Tian Rumming smiled slightly and said, "I refuse," and asked him why. He chose this. "I have other young leaders. They're all very strong." The man then told Tian Rumming, "The most important thing is that this team formation is self-imposed punishment." So the man wanted to seek refuge with Tian Rumming. He was already a top-level master himself. Tian Rumming was half believing and half doubting the man's words. Previously, the manuals they looked at in the library were all second-rate martial arts. This time, the assessment will provide a first-class manual. It allows the use of the 7 demonic swords, which can unleash the sword demon formation. He heard it from his father. At that time, there were 12 people in a group practicing the sword demon formation. He told Tian Rumming the information about the third stage of the assessment. The third stage will still involve group assessments. The probability is very high. The goal is to select the upper-level warriors. Only those who possess first-class martial arts and have over 50 years of inner strength can become upper-level warriors. He hadn't controlled his strength well just now. He hit the man too hard, causing serious injury. After a while, the man calmed down a bit. He propped himself up and sat up. He struck down at the man's parents. With this blow, the man spat out blood, knocked down and fell to the ground. At this moment, Tian Rumming was panicking. He slashed at him with his palm like a knife. Several horizontal slashes were easily dodged by Tian Rumming. He didn't realize that these movements were too slow in Tian Rumming's eyes. At this moment, Tian Rumming dodged the man's palm strike. Then, using his palm like a knife, he would tell him some information about the third phase of the exam. So Tian Rumming and the man went out to the outskirts. Both sides took their positions. The battle was about to begin. The man charged at Tian Rumming with all his strength. However, he was stopped by a man. The man said he wanted to spar with him. Tian Rumming originally didn't want to pay him any attention. But the man said, if he won, and located all the acupoints corresponding to the Chinese characters. Then, he connected them together. This formed a complete energy circulation route. The next day, after Tian Rumming finished eating, he intended to practice and refine the energy method he found the day before. At that moment, Tian Rumming seemed to have thought of something. The character has 3 strokes. Adding the 4 dots below makes exactly 7. Afterwards, Tian Rumming followed this method. The numbers and annotations of the acupuncture points were arranged in order, but number 4 corresponds to the Jiuwei acupoint. This is quite strange. Normally, energy flow starts from the Qihai acupoint in the Dantian area, but if it were the Qihai acupoint, it should be 7 points. There were 4 dots under the character, big. Could these 4 dots represent 4 acupuncture points? On second thought, it was denied by Tian Rumming again. Then he thought of a book he had seen earlier about acupuncture points. The characters on this stone are actually top-tier internal energy techniques. These characters were carved by the Grandmaster of Heavenly Demons by hand. Heavenly Command lets the nanomachines analyze the characters. He saw an image magnified countless times. Under each Chinese character, there were several dots. He seems to have thought of something. He did not use his internal energy to perform it. However, there are only sword techniques on the jade stone. There are no lines for channeling energy. Could it be that the Chinese characters carved on the front of the jade stone hold hidden secrets? At that moment, he discovered that his supreme sword technique was not fluid. Moreover, he was slower in finishing the move compared to others. He was completely puzzled by this. Why was there such a big gap in executing the same move? Just then, he used his finger as a sword, and executed the first move of the peerless sword technique. After he executed the first move, he always felt that something was off. It didn't feel smooth at all. So he had the machine compare the supreme sword technique he used with the trendy technique of Qinyu. The instructor warned Tian Rumming that if this happens again, he would be banned from using the training technique. Tian Rumming returned to the training room to continue practicing. In the training room, he wanted to try the unrivaled sword technique on the jade stone. When he realized who had broken through the wall, his blood rushed to his head, and he passed out. The on-duty coach was drawn by the sound of the explosion. Seeing someone injured, he carried the victim to the medical room. Tian Rumming gave an apologetic look and said sorry. So, he threw a punch at the training room wall. Little did he know, in the practice room next door, it was the leader of Group 6, who had a grudge against Tian Rumming, training there. A powerful force instantly blasted through the wall. Before he could react, he was seriously injured by the sudden punch. If he wants to further increase his physical strength, he can only grow taller. He looked at his strong body. With a face full of disbelief, he felt his entire body brimming with power. The transfer was complete. Next, he needed to enhance his body's strength to match the unparalleled sword techniques. At this moment, his internal skills had just reached the level of a top expert, but his external martial arts skills are already at the top level. His body has also reached its current limit. The internal energy has reached the level of external release, although it can't yet condense into the shape of a blade. Absorbing the magic dragon orb obtained this time should be enough. He instructed the machine to transfer the unparalleled sword techniques it had previously scanned into his brain. With a sharp pain in his head, he looked at his hands with a face full of misfortune. Did I suddenly gain enlightenment? At that moment, he was using the butterfly dance sword technique. It felt even smoother. Not only that, with a sudden gasp, Tian Rumming abruptly awakened. At this moment, he felt his body was stronger than ever before. He adjusted his breathing for a moment. He realized he had increased his inner strength by 10 years. What if he fought using the butterfly dance blade technique against that sword scar? Tian Rumming was immersed in his own world. In his mind, he tried to break the sword scar using the butterfly dance blade technique. As he practiced in his mind, his body began to change as well. You simply can't master these techniques. He then made the two sets of sword marks fight through 3D projections. The later sword technique still won in the final move. At that moment, he had a bold idea. It was faster and more complex than the techniques engraved on the green jade stone on the first floor. Then let the machine display the sword techniques engraved later. Looking at this 56 style, Tian Rumming felt helpless about the sword techniques. If you don't practice swordsmanship, Tian Rumming seemed to have anticipated it and dodged. It looks like he's not just an ordinary person. Meanwhile, Tian Rumming arrived at the personal training room. He instructed the machine to display the sword techniques extracted from the second layer in 3D. First was the unparalleled sword technique that was initially engraved. His goal is not to catch up with them, but to surpass them. Tian Lucan, who had just left, was also quite surprised. At first, I wanted to cut off Tian Rumming's arm, but before he could gather his sword energy, I didn't expect his strength to have reached the level of transforming energy into blood. With your level, you are still far from being able to take my life. After saying that, he turned and left. Tian Rumming originally thought that defeating Tian Wuji would allow him to be on par with other small leaders. But now it seems he is still very far away, but he hadn't finished speaking. Tian Lucan casually waved his right hand. In an instant, a chasm was cleaved in the ground. He with his internal energy. Seeing this, Tian Rumming's heart jumped in shock. Tian Rumming slightly turned to the side, ready to respond to the impending attack at any moment. But Tian Lucan suddenly laughed out loud while holding his stomach. Then he shook his head. This will definitely lead to a direct conflict later. Joining the Blade Demon sect would mean giving up the candidacy for the position of the young leader. Suddenly, the atmosphere on site became quite subtle. Just then, the nanomachines detected a powerful energy gathering to the right of Tian Lucan. They alerted Tian Rumming to move half a step to the left. Seeing how hard it is for Tian Rumming to find peace, Tian Lucan revealed his purpose. Come to our Blade Demon sect. Let's work hard together. Tian Rumming immediately refused his invitation. When I saw you cut off Tian Yuanli's arm before, I just fell for you. Tian Rumming doesn't believe his nonsense at all. Stop talking nonsense. Just tell me your true intentions. The 6 major sects have given you a hard time before, so this attitude is understandable. Tian Rumming said coldly, since you know that, why are you still expecting me to be nice to you? Tian Lucan shouted loudly, because I've fallen for you. Cautiously watching Tian Lucan. But Tian Lucan smiled and greeted Tian Rumming with a clasped fist salute. This left Tian Rumming unsure of how to respond. Seeing Tian Rumming ignoring him, he awkwardly scratched his head and said, "You're right." So easily, he forced the opponent to attack, and even subdued him. The man knew he was no match for Tian Lucan. Helpless, he could only turn and leave. Tian Rumming activated the battle assistance system, leaned forward and turned his palm into a knife, striking at Tian Lucan. Tian Lucan stood there, completely unmoving. He raised his arm slightly and blocked the blow. In the next moment, his palm was pressed against the man's neck. This move left Tian Rumming, who was nearby, quite shocked. He asked the man to delay his revenge. But the man had been searching for Tian Rumming all day. He didn't intend to get him caught. More importantly, Tian Liuzan's arrogant attitude angered him. The man, embarrassed and furious. But on the way, he was blocked by the leader of Group 6. The leader came to take revenge on Tian Rumming, just as the two were about to face off. Dao Demon Zone Tian Lucan appeared between them. He wanted to talk to Tian Rumming alone. He truly is a cautious person. Tian Rumming secretly became more wary of him. After leaving the library, he went to his personal training room. Tian Rumming wanted to quickly transfer the martial arts he had scanned and stored earlier onto himself. On the second floor, he saw Tian Lu of the Blade Demon sect, also a young master like him. Usually, people from these sects possess top-tier martial arts. They look down on these low-level martial arts manuals. But this guy even carefully studies the low-level ones. He could only extract the sword moves for storage first. Then he began to frantically scan martial arts manuals. While others couldn't memorize even one, he had already scanned 158 of them. To his surprise, he asked the guard warrior of this floor. Upon learning that there is a jade stone like this on every floor, Tian Rumming excitedly walked up to the second floor of the library. Tian Rumming found the same jade stone on the second floor. But at this moment, the place was full of people reading. Then let 2 virtual shadows battle it out. However, the unparalleled sword technique that was thought unbeatable, was surprisingly defeated by Hulk's Sword Scar by a narrow margin. As he expected, Hulk's Sword Scar was specifically to defeat this unparalleled sword technique. He had the nanomachines simulate the sword techniques again through 3D imaging. As he watched the techniques grow stronger each time, Tian Rumming had an idea. Could Hulk's sword techniques be meant to counter the original technique? He had the nanomachines display both sets of sword marks separately using 3D imaging. He was relieved that he almost missed protection due to the haphazardly covered sword marks. Just as Tian Rumming was about to turn and leave, the nanomachines told him that the 45 chaotic sword marks left by Hulk were actually sword techniques. This made Tian Rumming, who was about to leave, stop in his tracks. The power of this move left Tian Rumming shocked, his face filled with disbelief. With a disdainful expression, he questioned that machine. Is this just one move? After receiving a positive answer, Tian Rumming smiled even more happily. These are indeed not just simple sword marks. These sword marks represent a sword technique. The nanomachines display the sword marks through three-dimensional imaging. Immediately, a virtual shadow appears. Holding a long sword, he began to restore the process that caused the sword marks. And doubts arose in his mind. Are the sword marks that slide up behind meant to cover the original sword marks? Did he use nanomachines to separate the two different sword marks? I can see the original sword marks. Tian Ruming's heart skipped a beat. It said that the top-tier sword techniques of the Heavenly Demon Patriarch are engraved on it. However, no one has been able to learn from it so far. But after that samurai left, Tian Rumming used nanomachines to simulate the sword marks through 3D imaging. He looked at those marks. At the same time, nanomachines started scanning. They quickly scanned 55 martial arts manuals. At this moment, Tian Rumming noticed a huge jade stone. The samurai guarding the place told him that this giant stone was left by the Heavenly Demon Patriarch. These marks were left by two different people. After the assessment was over, Tian Rumming came to the Tianhua Divine General's library. The shelves were filled with countless books. He picked up a martial arts manual and began to read. Formed with his fingers, Tian Rumming had nanomachines scan and analyze the scratches. The conclusion: all these scratches were made with a sword tip. Based on the depth of the sword marks, the battle was reversed in an instant. One person's strength alone defeated the opponent. After winning, he glared fiercely at Tian Rumming in the distance. These scratches turned out to be from top-tier swordsmanship. The characters on the front are from the Heavenly Demon Patriarch. The two sides collided. The captain of Team 6 flicked their sword, knocking the opponent's shield away. Before the opponent could react, they pierced the opponent's body with one strike. Taking advantage of this, Team 6 members quickly pressed forward. They silently keep track of this in their mind. Team 7 sees their opponent struggling to walk, and their confidence instantly surges. They begin to charge straight ahead. Team 6 used wind techniques for a hard pen formation. At this moment, the final battle also began. Both teams arrive at the competition field. Everyone in Team 6, except the leader, is limping as they walk. The leader of Team 6 knows it's all Tian Rumming's doing. Li Yanming, the left guardian in this drought resistance match, was equally shocked, especially by Tian Rumming's brilliant strategy and tactics, and the decisiveness in severing Tian Yuanli's arm. It all left him stunned, regretting not taking him as a disciple earlier. A flash of sword light was seen, and Tian Yuanli's arm was severed with a single strike. He turned around, looking at his arm in disbelief. Agonized screams echoed through the arena. At this moment, the coach announced that Group 8 had passed the second stage exam. Tian Yuanli, enraged and humiliated, charged at Tian Rumming with his sword. Tian Rumming threw away his shield and swung his sword to defend. The powerful sword energy instantly slashed his face and knee. At this critical moment, Tian Rumming unleashed the butterfly dance technique. With that, Tian Rumming and his team surrounded everyone from Group 5. Under their overwhelming power, some people gave up resisting. They dropped their weapons. Just then, what use is switching to the wind arrow formation now? Suddenly, everyone's attention was focused ahead. Little do they know that Tian Rumming had already discussed this with the team. When he said the word exchange, it was actually the circular formation. Tian Yuanli hurriedly warned everyone to watch out for attacks from both sides. Tian Rumming didn't give them a chance to react. He shouted again to switch to Formation 2. Upon hearing Formation 2, Tian Yuanli looked shocked. Tian Yuanli plans to use a scale formation to charge and scatter them. Just as they are about to collide, Tian Rumming's formation changes again. It becomes the Heijia. They form an encirclement from both sides. Tian Yuanli didn't expect him to be this strong. They quickly retreat. They change formations again. Tian Rumming orders the team to switch to a diagonal formation. Seeing them change to a diagonal formation, the opponent charged in with the wind arrow formation. After analyzing the system, it was decided to use the fish scale formation to counter. The leaders of both formations collided first. A powerful shockwave erupted with a loud bang. However, neither side retreated an inch. The result showed he matched the mysterious man who previously injured Tian Wujing exactly. The test began. Tian Rumming led Team 8 to face Tian Yuanli's team. The fifth group is battling. At the beginning, Tian Ruming analyzed the formation using nanomachines. The left guardian Li Yanming noticed that some team leaders had been replaced, and revealed a meaningful smile. As he was about to leave after drawing lots, Tian Rumming noticed a man who looked somewhat familiar. He had the Namir machine analyze and compare him. The next day at the assessment site, Tian Ruming replaced Tian Wujing as the leader of Group 8, heading to draw lots and choose opponents. Previously, the lots divided them into 2 groups. Now, they are drawing lots again between the groups. The 16 people felt as if their lives were suddenly in danger. There were a total of 20 people in Group 6, including 3 girls upstairs and 1 more person. Could it be that person already discovered him? But on second thought, what can he do even if he found out? Then he took out a silver needle from somewhere. He inserted several needles into the acupoints on his leg. He then went to the residence of Group 6. By scanning, all 16 people were fast asleep. Seeing that they were all in a deep sleep, Tian Ruming jumped down from the roof. He then analyzed the features of each person, but didn't find the mysterious person who had previously injured the sky guards. He found the leaders of 7 groups. In the end, everyone decided to let Tian Ruming be the leader. After everyone fell asleep, Tian Ruming, dressed in black, left the dormitory. He arrived at the dormitory of Group 7, and scanned them using nanomachines. Tian Ruming returned to the dormitory. Everyone was arguing incessantly about the lack of a leader for tomorrow's assessment. Everyone had lost confidence in the assessment the next day. At that moment, the bald guy's little brother shouted that young Master Tian Ruming is here. Everyone exchanged glances. It wasn't just their group that had injuries. The earlier drawing of lots was meant to let them know their opponents in advance. Use some means to achieve victory. After realizing this, but only your group looked like you failed the test. After the instructor left, Tian Ruming thought carefully about what the instructor said. Only he figured it out in an instant. Tian Ruming quickly lifted another person and followed him out. The coach noticed he had followed. He showed a faint smile. He took the injured person from his hands, and said, "It's indeed surprising that this kid got hurt." Just at this moment, the chief can't move due to his leg injury. The instructor arrived. First, helped Tian Wujing with a simple bandage. Then he lifted Tian Wujing and prepared to take him to the medical room. Seeing the coach go out, Tian supported the injured 2 back to the dormitory. Tian Wu was injured in the leg and couldn't move. Seeing the chief injured, everyone immediately panicked. The assessment is tomorrow. He threw a punch at the man's abdomen. The man in black dodged this punch in a very short time. Then he quickly retreated. He glanced at Tian Ruming. A leap followed and disappeared. He saw Tian Wu, the guard, facing off against a masked man in black. The Tianwu police clearly weren't a match for the man in black. After all, they were from the same team. Tian Ruming still stepped forward. As the man in black attacked the Tianwu police, on his way back, he heard the sounds of a fight, so he went to check it out. Since it was dark, he activated night mode. After hundreds of training matches, Tian Ruming only managed to defeat the virtual image of Tian Wuji once. The first battle lasted only 5 seconds. The night before the assessment, Tian Ruming finished his field training. He asked if there was a way to quickly improve his combat experience. The nanomachines replied, they could replicate virtual images of people Tian Ruming had interacted with, and simulate the martial arts they had performed. Thus, Tian Ruming began training by battling the virtual image of Tian Wuji. He realized he lacked real combat experience. But real combat experience can only be gained in battle. There was no way to improve it in a short time. At that moment, he thought of that machine. Tian Ruming had martial arts skills. However, he lacked practical experience. No match for Tian Rujin. In the end, he relied on that machine's assistance to defeat Tian Rujin. Tian Ruming went alone to a remote place. In an instant, he appeared beside him. A knife hand struck toward him. The people nearby only saw a flash of shadow passing by. Tian Rujin dodged this attack again. Then, with a high side kick, he knocked Tian Ruming down. Another knife hand strike. The heavenly guard swiftly dodged backward. Then, a heavy punch landed on Tian Ruming's abdomen. The powerful force made him stumble backward. Tian Ruming had no intention of giving Tian Wujing a chance to catch his breath. Tian Ruming struck at him with a knife hand. The speed was astonishing, and the power surprised the heavenly guard. He didn't expect that someone who had no martial arts skills before could become so powerful now. Tian Ruming thought about pressing the attack. Tian Ruming was very fast. He felt that this place was already quite remote, so he stopped. Immediately, Tian Wujing also stopped. Just as he steadied himself, Tian Ru landed a punch squarely on Niamen. Just as he was about to counterattack with his Fumo empty fist, Tian Ru quickly retreated and ran away. How could he let him go so easily after being hit? So Tian Wujing quickly followed with his subordinate. Tian Ru hurriedly denied it. That's not what I meant. Angry and embarrassed, he grabbed Tian Ru's collar. Then he threw a punch, but his fist didn't touch Tian Ru. When I returned to the dormitory at night, I brought along my troublesome underling. He said I was from a dirty bloodline. I shot back at him directly. So, does that mean the leader has a dirty bloodline too? The man took the chance to kick Tian Ruming's butt. What he didn't expect was, they didn't have any issues. Yet I was thrown away for 66 seconds. I was watching, feeling furious and helpless. No opportunity. He planned to create one. He gave a signal to a man. The man understood immediately and, during training, to his surprise, with every change in formation, Tian Rumming's coordination was flawless, while others couldn't keep up, but he didn't move an inch. Next, Yi Meng planned to teach him his unique martial art, the butterfly dance blade technique. Tian Rumming returned to the training field, and quickly blended into the training team. Meanwhile, Tian Wujing was waiting for him to fall behind in training, waiting for him to mess up. Time passed bit by bit. Tian Rumming's internal energy grew rapidly. In the end, he gained half a lifetime's worth of internal energy. He told Tian Rumming to stabilize his cultivation. With internal energy as the foundation, Yi Meng helped him absorb as much as possible, but when he placed his hand on Tian Rumming's back, to his surprise, the medicinal power has been fully absorbed. Actually, it's all because of the nanomachines. The smell made him feel like vomiting. He forcibly covered his mouth with his hand, swallowed it down, then sat cross-legged, absorbing the medicine's power. The man was about to wake up. He quickly pressed his pressure point again. The man fell into a deep coma once more. Then he had Tian Rumming take the dragon demon pill. Tian Rumming forced himself to endure the stench and put it in his mouth. Tianru summoned his internal energy, and struck the man's pressure points until he passed out. The man fainted. Yi Meng looked at the man tied up, because Tian Rumming's internal strength was insufficient. He didn't expect that he already knew. Wang kowtowed and apologized. He loudly said what just happened. I won't reveal it to anyone. Please, spare me. The man's head started shaking like a rattle drum. Seeing this, Tian Rumming untied the rope from his mouth. Before the man could speak, Tian Rumming said, "Is it Tian Wujing?" The man was also startled. Unfortunately, his mouth was sealed. He couldn't make a sound. Soon, all 5 of his fingers were filled with silver needles. During the process, the man passed out from the pain twice. Just as Tian Rumming grabbed his other hand to continue, he took out a silver needle. He inserted it into the tip of the finger. The 10 fingers are connected to the heart. The intense pain caused his brows to furrow. He was in so much pain that he twisted into a ball. Tian Rumming, seeing he wouldn't cooperate, came up with an idea. He sealed the man's mouth once again. He grabbed the man's hand, then pried open his fingers. The questioner demanded, "Speak up. Who sent you here?" The man, unfazed, replied, "You dare kill me in the infirmary. You think you'll get away with it? That's right. In the demon path, anyone who harms their fellow disciples pays a heavy price." The nanomachine's defense mechanism activated. In an instant, it released a 100,000-volt shock. His hair was completely disintegrated by the powerful current. Tian Rumming tied him up tightly and threw him on the bed. Then he placed the dagger on his neck, and slowly walked to Tian Rumming's bedside. He looked at the sleeping Tian Rumming. He grabbed Tian Rumming's ankle. The small knife slid towards his toes. Just as he touched Tian Rumming's body, he claimed that he had accidentally been shot in the back with an arrow during training. Dr. Bai carefully stitched up his wound. By evening, the man climbed out of his bed. He picked up Dr. Bai's scalpel. An hour later, Yi Meng slowly withdrew his palm. At this point, he appeared somewhat fatigued, and the meridians of life had also remembered the circulation path. 4 days later, a man was suddenly brought into the clinic, which had been quiet. Yi Meng's expression became one of immense shock. He felt that the meridians of life were unobstructed. He could circulate his internal energy without hindrance. At this moment, he felt more confident. He would master his internal energy within 7 days. He immediately instructed Tian Rumming to sit cross-legged. Yi Meng decided to directly open his blocked meridians with his internal energy. He placed one palm on Tian Rumming's back. A stream of pure internal energy flowed into his body. As the energy circulated within him, Yi Meng came to Tian Rumming's room to meet. He then asked him if he had memorized the inner power secrets. Fortunately, last night Tian Rumming had the machine scan it. Seeing the disciples suffering from internal injuries, he felt very gratified. He was truly relieved in his heart. He said directly that he would help you go to the infirmary to tell him the assessment rules. Hearing this, the armed police felt conflicted inside. He originally wanted to take this opportunity to go to the infirmary and escape Tian Rumming. Unfortunately, the plan fell through. The next morning at dawn, Tian Wujin proactively approached the instructor in charge of their training. He wanted to go to the medical room to find Tian Rumming, and tell him about the rules for the second stage of the assessment. The instructor was pleased to see such mutual support and camaraderie among his group members. He was very happy. The second phase of the test focused on teamwork. Next, those who passed were divided into groups. What a coincidence. Tian Rumming and Tian Wujin, who had always wanted to take him out, were assigned to the same group. After everyone dispersed from the square, Yi Meng instructed, "First, memorize the key points of the internal cultivation method. I'll teach you how to use it next time." At this moment, only about 400 people remained after passing the first phase of the test. Those who failed were still unconvinced. In the end, they were all knocked out and carried away. Shouted loudly, "Master, I pay my respects to you," and bowed as a disciple. Yi Meng grinned, and raised his palm. Tianru's body stood up uncontrollably. if you become my disciple, I will immediately start teaching you the inner martial arts technique. At this moment, Tian Ruming, after weighing the pros and cons, directly knelt down. With a bang, he kowtowed. You'll still need to stay here for 14 days. At that moment, he thought of the paper by the bedside. So he opened his mouth and asked, is that paper a martial arts manual? Yi Meng proudly said, that's right. That is this protector's martial arts manual. Tian Ruming looked disdainful. He thought to himself, who says it's impossible? I have internal rice machines. It will heal in just a few hours. But to avoid raising suspicion, Yi Meng felt a little shaken inside upon seeing Tian Ruming. He then said that it was because they had internal injuries. They can rely on luck to heal, but you don't even change your internal skills. It's impossible to heal internal injuries in a short time. Do you know why those people were also injured, yet weren't sent to the infirmary? Hearing this, I finally realized that among all the people injured and fallen in the square, he was indeed the only one sent to the infirmary. Seeing that Tian Ruming remained silent for a long time, the protector, Yi Meng, pulls out a piece of paper from his pocket. With a snap, he was slammed onto his bed. You just entered the magic tunnel, and you were sent to the infirmary, and you have to stay here for 14 days. However, Tian Ruming is worried that he has other motives. He knows very well that this person has conflicts with the 6 major sects. Yet he still wants to take him as a disciple. He fears it might be a trap. He hesitates and doesn't dare to agree. I'll take you as my disciple. This man has to drink 800 jin of wine every day, and it must be fermented by a beautiful woman chewing it with her mouth. This person is none other than the Night Demon, one of the protectors of the Heavenly Demon sect. He wants to take Tian Ruming as his apprentice. Seeing this, Yi Meng, a surge of pure internal energy flowed into his body. Tian Ruming immediately felt much better. Seeing his condition improve, Yi Meng continued, kid, you really are something special. Meeting me without the slightest fear. There aren't many kids with your kind of determination anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Ruming coughed up a mouthful of blood. Then Guardian Yemen continued, if you keep pretending to be asleep, I'll have to slap your face. Hearing this, Tian Ruming suddenly opened his eyes wide. How did you know? Seeing this, Yi Meng burst out laughing. Kid. Seeing that Tian Ruming didn't react, he raised his hand, using his internal energy to help Tian Ruming up from the bed. At this moment, Tian Ruming felt like his body was bound by an invisible force, unable to move. The sudden appearance of the person startled him, leaving him flustered. When he finally recognized the visitor, it turned out to be Temptation Faye. He walked up to the bed of Tian Ruming, and said gloomily, why are you pretending to sleep? However, what puzzled him was, the amount of bleeding from this internal injury was too much, so he prepared to start with acupuncture treatment. He had just reached the door, when the door was suddenly opened. Today is his first day as the head of the medical office. A patient has already come in. He was extremely happy. He placed his hand on Tianru's pulse. He confirmed it was an internal injury. Someone actually resisted the Yin wave palm. With sheer willpower instead of internal strength, Tian Ruming was sent to the infirmary. Dr. Bai Zongming saw a patient being brought in. He was very excited, and said, that was a bit too much. Elder Wu has no internal martial arts power at all. He was just one step away from killing someone. Upon hearing this, Yusu looked incredulous. Being able to hold on until the end was purely through willpower. So he arranged for someone to send him to the medical room. On the way to the medical room, Tian Ruming used nanomachines to repair his damaged internal organs. Li Yanming looked at Xiang Yusu with a face full of reproach. Grabbing his wrist, he channeled a stream of pure internal energy into his body. At that moment, Li Yanming's expression suddenly turned to shock. That test just now, he confirmed that Tian Ruming has no internal energy at all. Even without internal energy, he was unharmed. This could easily arouse suspicion. So, he used the internal sensitivity device to inflict serious injuries on himself. Left protector Li Yanming saw Tian Ruming spitting blood and collapsing. He leapt forward and appeared by his side. Tian Ruming coughed up a mouthful of blood. Then he collapsed to the ground. A large amount of blood kept pouring out of his mouth. It turned out that all of this was his own arrangement. Under such powerful Yin energy, the current level of Yin energy had already exceeded the assessment requirements. If he increased the power any further, how could their internal energy possibly withstand that? Xiang Suyo also felt that she had lost her composure. Just as the assessment ended, Lu Jun started to doubt Tian Ruming's internal martial arts training. At this point, he was a bit frantic. Just as he was about to further enhance the Yin energy, the left guardian stopped him in time. By now, more than half of the people in the square had collapsed. The little leaders also felt a significant increase in pressure. Han Shi sat down to circulate energy for defense. Only Tian Ruming remained completely unaffected. Not even a hint of discomfort could be seen on his face. Even increasing the power of the Yin energy didn't bring him down. His expression showing no sign of pain. I suddenly felt my dignity was insulted. Unconsciously, the frequency of my playing sped up a bit. Under this powerful sound bow, people in the square fell down one after another. But there is one more person unaffected. The nanomachines directly shielded Tian Rumming from the sonic attack. He doesn't feel anything at all. Standing there, completely still. Xiang Yusu saw him standing there just fine. The beautiful melody turned into a deadly sound in everyone's ears. The crowd covered their ears. Their faces filled with pain. Some of the less skilled individuals have already collapsed. Meanwhile, the junior sect leaders in the front row remain calm. He is the fifth elder of the Heavenly Demon Sect. The leader of the Yin Demon Sect, Xiang Suyo. He is in charge of the first stage of the assessment. As long as you can endure his dark arts for 15 minutes, you'll pass the test. He started to play the pipa in his arms. He knows that Tian Rumming has no inner strength. He will definitely be eliminated in this assessment. This way, he won't have to take action himself. Just then, a beautiful woman with a pipa slowly walked over. But he has no inner strength at all. How will he face the first assessment? At this moment, Tian Rumming finally understood the reason why the 6 major sects made him swear not to learn inner strength back then. Where there are worries, there are also joys. The little leader, Tian Wujing, has always wanted to eliminate Tian Rumming. Now we begin. To allocate dorms and teams. We'll conduct the first phase of the assessment. Hearing this, Tian Rumming was completely stunned. He didn't expect it to start right now. After hearing the rules of the magic pipeline assessment, Tian Rumming knows that now he can only move forward through challenges. Only this way can he keep the secrets. Li Yanming looked at the noisy crowd in the square. Alright, the assessment requirements have been explained. If you perform excellently, there is still a chance to learn from the top. And the third reward is that you will be given corresponding status and rights. The junior leaders also have to start over. They need to pass the assessments to earn their positions. As long as he can pass the 6 assessments, he can greatly increase his inner strength in a short time. At this point, Li Yanming on stage continued. The second reward is a martial arts manual, Mo Guandao, which is divided into 5 levels. Each time you pass a stage of the assessment, 1 level will be unlocked for you. The Demon Dragon Pill is a sacred elixir of the sect. Properly absorbing it can increase internal power by 20 years. Tian Rumming overheard the conversation. Hope ignites in the heart. He is now in a state of complete loss of inner strength. Although there's only 1 chance for the advanced assessment. As long as you pass it, you'll receive 3 special rewards. The first reward is the Demon Dragon Pill. Hearing this, the crowd below started murmuring. Do you want to be eliminated before the competition even starts? Hearing this, the subordinate could only bow and apologize. He certainly doesn't want to be eliminated now. Seeing him quiet down, Li Yanming continued speaking. He was about to make a move immediately. Li Yanming noticed the young cult leader's defiance. So, you should know that Zhou Shen exudes an impressive aura. From the day you joined the martial arts school, the privileges of being the little sect master have been revoked. A young man in the front row suddenly raised his hand and said, I have something to say. Li Yanming looked at the man, and coldly said, did I give you permission to ask questions? As the son of the cult leader, he had never been insulted like this. It is divided into 6 stages. Each stage has an advancement assessment. If you fail the advancement assessment, you can only challenge once. Those who fail will be eliminated. At that moment, just as the leader was about to leave, out of the corner of his eye, he saw the sky as if it were a lifeline. The cold, indifferent gaze extinguished the last glimmer of hope in his heart. After the leader left, the left protector, Li Yanming, spoke again about the magic management path, which lasted 4 years. The leader went on, saying you must diligently practice martial arts here. In the end, you will become the backbone of our sacred sect. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd in the plaza erupted in excitement. They shouted loudly, long live the celestial demon sect. Welcome to join the martial hall. Everyone was stunned. Despite the distance, it was so clear. Yet the voice seemed as if it were right beside them. It was evident how profound his inner strength was. The overwhelming pressure caused everyone to break out in cold sweat. It was Tian Rumming's first time seeing the demon sect leader. His personal guard simply waved his hand, and the previously noisy plaza instantly fell silent. Tianyangzong slowly stood up, responsible for the future talents of the sect. The right guardian, Yi Meng, wouldn't back down. What's it to you? The red-haired monster, the leader's personal bodyguard, glanced at the 2 of them. They immediately shut up in fear. At this moment, the leader of the Tianyu sect sat on the high seat, just sitting in front. The leader slowly walks into the crowd's view. The right protector Yi Meng, following behind, trips on his own clothes. Almost had a close encounter with the ground. To the side, the left guardian, Li Yanming, looked embarrassed. You're showing up in rags. And you're drunk too. At this point, he realizes that reaching the front is impossible. With no choice, he can only stand at the back. At this moment, the left protector Li Yanmin at the front does not see Tian Rumming. Eventually, he spots him at the last row. The sound of a horn echoes. Tian Rumming silently made up his mind. He must become stronger. Stronger than anyone. When he got his number tag, the square is already filled with people. Helpless, he could only wait on the side. He knows it must have been the 6 major sects that set him up. They don't want him standing with those noble sons. They just want to humiliate him. It was also them who were behind the earlier assassination attempts. Others dressed in fine clothes stood proudly at the front of the line, but he could only stay in the corner. Tian Ruming lined up to get his number, but was told there wasn't one for him. At this moment, the left protector, Yen Wang Li Huming, appears at a high place, looking down at the crowd below. In the front row, standing imposingly, are the sons of the sect leader, but he didn't see Tian Ruming, both sons of the demon sect leader, so he needs to stay strong. He mustn't shed any more tears. In the plaza of the demon sect, all sects within the sect have gathered here. The place is packed with people. He was still very young then. Zhang Huwei raised him alone to adulthood. But after he joined the martial arts school, Zhang Huwei had to leave. From then on, he could only rely on himself. At this moment, Tian Ruming's eyes were filled with tears. When he took the manual, tears could no longer be controlled, dampening the luck formula in his hands. Recalling the year his mother passed away, unexpectedly, he praised him for doing well, and said if it weren't for the agreement with the 6 major sects, you wouldn't be forbidden from practicing martial arts. I would have taught you long ago. After saying this, he handed him the secret technique for channeling energy in the short swordsmanship style. Guard Zhang directly moved the table that was in the way. Seeing these footprints, he was even more certain that Tian Ruming had already mastered the short sword technique. Stealing others' martial arts is a taboo in the martial world. I thought Guard Zhang would blame him, so I wanted to eat inside. Little did he know, Guard Zhang had already noticed the footprints inside the house. After he finished breakfast, Guard Zhang asked, "When did you learn the art of the short sword?" Upon hearing this, Tian Ruming tried to explain. Tian Ruming casually grabbed a table to cover the footprints on the floor. Guard Zhang saw this and asked suspiciously, "Don't you usually eat by the window?" Tian Ruming gave an awkward smile. "We're about to enter the magic conduit." He picked up the dagger again. Now, he wielded the dagger techniques with more accuracy and strength, and without any muscle pain. At that moment, Guard Zhang walked in with breakfast. He looked surprised. "I didn't expect that after just watching me train for 2 years, you could catch up to my 20 years of dagger training." Tian Ruming woke up. By now, the transformation was complete. He felt slightly relieved. Just then, he noticed footprints on the floor. Looking closely, they were made by the footwork of short swordsmanship. Hearing the cries of pain, he rushed over. But Tian Ruming had already fainted from the intense pain. Guard Zhang placed his hand on his pulse to check his vital signs. Seeing that his condition was normal, performing high-difficulty moves under such conditions caused damage to his muscles and tendons. However, the nanomachines can upgrade and modify his muscles. Tian Ruming had the nanomachines modify his body. The intense pain made him cry out loudly. At that moment, Guard Zhang was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Exactly like Guard Zhang, who had been practicing for 20 years. But at that moment, suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his muscles. The intense pain made cold sweat pour from his body. His muscles and fibers haven't been repeatedly trained. Then it began to transfer, accompanied by dizziness in his head. The short sword techniques appeared in his mind. Excitedly, he picked up the short sword to give it a try. His movements flowed seamlessly. He didn't expect that besides being able to scan martial arts manuals, he could also scan action movements. He immediately ordered to start the scan. About half an hour later, the scan was completed. The guard was practicing his short sword technique. Just as he was absorbed in watching the guard train, the sound of machinery came. "Can you scan the training movements of Zhang's guard?" Hearing this, Tian Ruming looked surprised. In the future, learning the techniques will be faster than anyone else. This will give him more confidence to become stronger in the magic pipeline. Thus, he can survive. Tian Ruming was so excited that he couldn't sleep all night. In the morning, he came to the window. He tried to think about the content of the book. Those contents appeared in his mind. It wasn't just simple memorization, but a comprehensive understanding of the material in the book. He truly realized he had this ability. "Do you agree?" Tian Ruming chose to agree without hesitation. Countless pieces of information instantly flooded into his mind. The transfer of information made him feel dizzy again. But after recovering, he went to the study. He picked up a martial arts manual and quickly skimmed through it. When he finished skimming, the system prompted that the scan was complete. It would transfer to the user's mind. His palm emitted a glowing light. The wound slowly healed at a visible pace. Even though he could see it, he still found it hard to believe. After taking a shower, the nanomachines replied, "Any external injuries or damage to internal organs can be immediately repaired. The severed body parts and blood loss take time to heal." So he took out a short blade and cut open his own palm. Then he let the nanobots do the repair. Guard Zhang could no longer bear the smell coming from him, and quickly said, "Young master, you should take a bath first." While bathing, Tian Ruming asked the nanomachines, "You said earlier you can restore my body. To what extent can it be restored?" The impurities in his body have been expelled, and his meridians are now unblocked. His body has become the most suitable for martial arts training. Hearing this, Tian Rumming realized that the sticky black liquid from earlier was actually impurities being expelled from his body. After Dr. Bai left, he exclaimed in disbelief. Guard Zhang, beside him, nervously asked, "What do you mean by that? Is there something wrong with the young master's body?" Dr. Bai calmly replied. Quite the opposite. It turned out his guard had brought Dr. Bai over to check on him. Guard Zhang found him unconscious in the wild, and brought him back. Dr. Bai placed his hand on his pulse, and looked utterly surprised. Once he recovered, holding his dizzy head, he asked with a face full of misfortune, "Do I really have tens of thousands of precise machines inside me?" The nanomachine responded, stating that, to be precise, there are 6.4 billion nanobots inside your body. At that moment, a knock on the door was heard. He was so scared that he jumped out of bed. He immediately prostrated himself on the ground. The nanobots had no choice but to help him use them better. They directly transmitted the instructions into his brain. The massive influx of information made him vomit instantly. His body is covered in a black, viscous liquid that emits a pungent odor. As he is in a daze, a voice claiming to be a nanobot suddenly appears in his mind. He even thought it was the great demon god speaking. It opens once every 10 years. On the way back to participate in the assessment, Tian Rumming encounters a killer chasing him. At the brink of death, he is saved by a man dressed in modern clothing. When he wakes up again, his abdomen, originally pierced by a sword, has fully healed. The children would then be raised by the 6 clans. He is the leader's 7th son. Now they have all grown up. They must enter the most brutal training ground of the demon sect. The training ground is where the demon sect trains its elites. He can master after just one look. He is the illegitimate son of the demon sect leader, Tian Rumming. There are 6 major sects in the demon sect. The leader of the demon sect made a pact with the 6 major clans to marry women from each clan and have children. There are 6.4 billion nanobots in his body. Top-tier martial arts secrets. Just one glance and he can recite them perfectly. Not only that, the martial arts moves others use.